Um, Test. Good morning, RoboCon. Good morning, world. Hello, fellow robots. My name is René Rona. I'm the chairman of the Robot Framework Association, and I'm really happy to welcome you to this pre-show or tutorial day. I see already many people in the stream, and I very warmly welcome Manana. Hello, Manana. You're still muted, by the way. So you have to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Good morning. So
Good
Manana will
morning.
give us today tutorial about templates. Nice feature in Robot Framework, maybe not that commonly known. So I'm really happy that Manana takes her time and shows us this. So for all of you who are joining that stream just on YouTube, or they found maybe the stream somewhere in the internet, this is a pre-show of the RoboCon, our annual Robot Framework conference. You're super happy to still buy tickets, so you can buy tickets today on RoboCon.io. And if you want to join awesome talks tomorrow, you can also watch, we had 2 weeks ago the RoboCon in Helsinki, where we had very nice talks about AI, about mobile testing, about everything with Robot Framework. And you can watch these recordings as well once you buy a ticket at RoboCon.io. So today we are using a platform for live streaming. All the participants, I already see some participants on YouTube. As you see, you can chat, you can ask questions in the chat. I will ask these questions then to Manana. And after this first tutorial round where Manana will explain us a lot, we will also have a live Q&A session where we can go a little bit interactive after a break. In that break, or also after, I can also pull you in to the stage if you want to discuss something with Manana or want to ask a live question. Maybe that's a little bit more interactive. So if you would like to do that, you can also later just send me a chat message that you want like to join the stream. You can use the stream also for normal chatting if you want. You can also ask questions. I would like to ask you, if you have a question, just start it with a capital Q and a colon, and then put your question. Then I know I can mark that for later use. And then ask Manana this question once she's ready and good for that question. We will have a 10-minute break in between, so that everyone can grab another coffee or so. And yeah. So again, welcome, Manana. Thank you for the patience sitting here while I do the introduction. Manana, do you want to briefly introduce yourself? So who are you? How comes that you are now giving tutorials about Robot Framework? What brings you here?
First, thanks a lot for the intro. Yeah, so Manana, that with the minion icon in Slack, if anybody has seen me. And I love Robot Framework a lot, especially its community, and always feels good to give back something to community. It's just a lot of joy and also learning and exchanging knowledge with the community, learning something from them and sharing what I have learned. I'm really happy to be here.
How long are you using Robot Framework already?
About 7 years with some gaps in between, but still.
Okay. Always happy when you come back to Robot Framework, or?
Yes, I always miss working with Robot Framework. It's mainly because I also do manual testing at work, and sometimes I have to pause. But also this RoboCon and being involved in the community helps me keep up my skills while I'm focused on manual testing at work.
Okay. Great. So then I will not hold you back longer, and then would like to you share. I think you start with a presentation, right?
Yes.
So yeah, okay. If you then start the presentation, I will pull it up. Okay.
Yes.
So okay, then have fun. And if you have any questions, just raise them in the YouTube chat or in the StreamYard chat, and I will then pull it up once Manana is so far. Okay, have fun. Bye-bye.
Thanks. All right. So I'm going to talk about templates today. What they are, how they are used, and we'll start from very basics and go to a bit advanced topics. I'm joining from Finland, sending love and greetings to the world. And yeah, a bit about the outline. So tutorial is divided in 4 parts. The first part will cover basics. I will cover general concept of data-driven approach and how templates are related to it. Then how what are templates in Robot Framework and how they might look like. Then the second part will be about usage at different levels. At test level, suite level, how setups and teardowns behave with templates, and how to handle failures. And there are some highlights from recently released Robot Framework version 7.2. After the second part, we will have a 10-minute break. And after the break, we'll move to the next topic, which is control structures. Control structures are, for example, iterators like for, while, and also break and continue, which force test cases either to stop or to continue even based on some certain condition. Then we'll also see new group syntax. This is also new in 7.2. And we will demo how this new syntax works with templates. And then about data driver library and what it has to do with templates. Finally, because clean coding is important, there will be some tips how to write clean test code and how to handle text and documentation or different layout and styles. Yes. So, what are templates? I think it feels a bit slow, but yeah. So before we go to templates, first briefly about what is data-driven approach. And shortly, it is same tests, but different data. We iterate the same tests, but data changes. And real-life examples in testing could be, for example, user login. When username and password combinations change, there could be valid username, invalid password, vice versa, or empty username, empty password. And we always check that login with invalid credentials does not succeed. Another example is input validation. For example, we may be checking that email and phone number format is valid. API testing, where again we check response codes for different header and body. File validations, for example, size, type, creation timestamp, and so on. Well, so let's get started. Yeah, I will stop. Now sharing this, and let's move to try a few examples. It is not necessary to follow exercises because the goal is to overview and go through how templates can be used in different ways, and hopefully then participants can adopt them in their projects, what is relevant for them and what fields that make sense. We will write from scratch simple examples, and therefore there is no any material that is required beforehand. Shortly about environment, I'm using Robot Framework 7.2 with Python 3.12 and relevant extensions, Robot Code and Python. So, let's start from very simple example just to see how templates work in Robot Framework. Let's say we just want to print something, and let's just print some 2 words, and let's pass these 2 words as arguments. First argument and second output, and let's just print post and second. Sorry, I used log many, so there should be space. So what this keyword should do is that it should just print whatever we pass here first, second, and second. Normally, how we would use this in robot framework is print something, or let's call test case, give test case a name, simple test case with template. And then we would pass some arguments. But instead of this, we can set it as a template. And in setting section, it's defined as template and the keyword name. Now that it is set in the settings section, Robot Framework already knows which keyword to use for the test case. So there is no need to pass keyword name anymore. And we can just pass arguments. So this is now expected to print first AAA and second BBB. Let's run. And let's look. Indeed, we got printed first argument and the second argument. Again, to highlight, we have not passed keyword name, only arguments, only data. And we can get more data and so on. So as we see, we are passing data and we are repeating the same keyword for each data row. If we compare in the log, print something, the first iteration, the second, and this third. As we also see, iterated are keywords and not the test case. And this is very important to remember, and we'll see later why. So iteration is over keywords. And the test case is only one. This set of iterations belong to one test case. Hopefully this gives a brief idea how templates work, and let's go to a bit more practical examples. For example, here is a keyword which counts a number of given characters in a word. Argument is some word, and the second argument is character, and we count how many characters are in the string and check that it occurs at least twice. So count, and we check that this letter is occurrence is either 2 or more. Important note here is that since we have iterations over keywords, keyword plays a role of a test case. So this is where a verification step is, and not inside the keyword, not inside the test case. In the first example, when we looked here, we did not have any verification because it was just for the demo. Let's start to run this, and we should expect that, for example, the first test passes because L is twice in the word hello. So same behavior, except that we had here also verification step. let's now see what happens if something fails. Let's try to find letter D in robot framework. So D is not found. We should expect that it fails. It indeed failed. And what happens is that even though iteration, the second iteration failed, the test case execution continues. It goes to the next iterations. However, overall test result is failed. So this is called user keyword because it calls other keywords. And with the user keywords, there are two options. Either we can have verification inside the keyword like this, should be true, or we can have argument with the expected value, for example, expected, and let's put the count and let's change this. Vehicle is integers. And we compare to the expected value. So the difference is that we pass expected value also as an argument, and it will be here as a third argument. For example, here we will have 2 because we have 2 L's, and here if we change again to R, it will be twice, and it will be twice, and O is 3 times. If we run this, we have verification expected outcome as an argument here, 2, 2, 3. To make this a little bit more readable, we can do a little bit better formatting. So I will show, but we will go to style and clean coding a bit later. So we can align in the columns, and we can also title the columns for clarity. So this test will run normally. Yes. So what happens now? It's important to remember that column titles cannot be on the same line as test case title because it is considered as an argument, just like these ones. So it should necessarily be on the same line as a section title, test case section title. If we try again now. Okay, let's see what's happening.
Maybe reload the language server.
Okay, or let's try on command line. Okay, yes. it ran normally because this was only formatting. It has only formatting event and effect and is not considered as an argument. Yeah, so one more tip about using user arguments. Let's say these arguments have default values. For example, character is something, let's say M, and yeah, and string is member, and expected is 2. So these have default arguments. These are default values, and in normal case, if we did not, if we don't pass arguments, the keyword will use these default values. But here we need to pass something. But we can use a trick. We can use empty list, and let's see what happens. Okay, how do I reload this? Maybe I try to run. No. Let's try again.
If you can you press F1?
Yes.
And then say restart, and there is clear cache and restart language server. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Try that out, and then let's wait. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, now it's there.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Some hiccup.
Yes. Well, yeah. So now we passed empty list instead of arguments, and let's see what happened. So the test passed because it took default values. We can also print maybe to check what values it's using. Example. And expect. Let's try again. So we see that it used default values, member, M, and 2, even though we did not pass anything. We passed empty list here. And if we don't have, for example, default value for string, we can pass string and then empty, for example, some here, like morning, and then empty. So just like this was how to use user keyword, and just like user keywords, we can use library keywords. Library keywords are the ones which don't call other keywords. For example, if we look at the built-in library, we have here, for example, should contain. And we can also use keywords from libraries. Let's say we are just checking that the string is contained in another string. So we are not passing any arguments here because if we don't pass, we only pass here container and item, which are required. But we are not passing the rest of the arguments. And in this case, it takes default values. So this will also run with defaults. Let's try. And this also passes. We can do in the same way as we did in case of user keywords. For example, if we want to check, let's say we want to ignore the case, we can pass it as an additional argument. For example, let's change capital M to small m and ignore case. And now everything should be good. But when in this case, it's important to remember that we should also pass name because this is a named argument. And if we just pass true, it will be the value of the wrong argument. So then we will give a value true to the message. So we should pass the name of the argument too. Of course, one can write their own Python libraries as well, but let's skip that for now. Then we can also use embedded arguments. So as we see, template keyword is just a keyword, anything that can be implemented in Robot Framework. Embedded keywords are a bit different in a sense that we can embed expected output also in the keyword's title. For example, here, start and end are the arguments, and after joining them, we should get the third argument, which is expected value word. And if we run this example, we will get 4 test cases with arguments replaced with values for each iteration. The first one, second one, third, and fourth. So this is a very short summary of how templates look like, and maybe we look at the recap of the first part. So templates are used in a data-driven approach, and it can be any keyword type, user, library, or embedded. Template keyword should have arguments, because otherwise it does not make sense, because we want to iterate over data. And again, iterated are keywords, not test cases. Empty list can be used with default arguments, or if we don't want to use any arguments with the template keyword. And what to watch out, if we title data columns, they should not be considered as argument, and for that reason we need to place them on the same line as test case section title. Now let's go to the second part, which is usage at different levels, and see how we can manipulate templates within test unit. Let's start again, and just a second. Sorry. Let's take another example. And let's say that we want to check some files and verify that their size does not exceed some limit. We don't want them to grow too big. I have some files here in data folder, and I will check some of those files. Let's name would not exceed, and checks given file size and else if exceeds limit. So we need to pass a file name maybe, and maximum size. Then we can use operating system library to get the size of the file. Get file size, it's a keyword from operating system library, and file. So this will get the file from data directory and get its size. And let's make sure that size is not then allowed maximum. Of course, now we have to set this as a test template. And we need to have test case name. Let's call test case files. And check some of the files here. For example, robot framework output files. And we pass here size in bytes, so that's why so many zeros. Just approximately. Like in previous examples, we have set test template, and it will be applied to this test case entirely for each iteration. So in this case, we have one test case, 3 iterations. But there could be some cases where we need to maybe where we have more files or something more to check, and we might need to group test cases according to some logic. Templates support. If we are using templates, we can have different test cases within the same suite. For example, we can split, and let's say we want to sort HTML files together, and maybe XML, and text files. As we see here, this means that we have now 3 separate test cases, and the template will be applied to all of them. Here. Yes, was there any question or comments?
Not yet, really. But maybe I can ask a question while we are not now talking anyway.
Yes.
When would you, so from your experience or your feeling, when would you start using multiple test cases versus a single test with multiple templates? So what would be your reason for making this decision?
I think it depends what we are testing. For example, in this case, where we need to sort test cases themselves in some logical groups, then it makes sense to have multiple test cases. But if we are changing data sets, if data sets can be grouped according to certain logic, let's say all empty usernames, or let's say all special characters, then I think in that case, it makes sense to have one test case and multiple templates so that you can run same how to say, so that you change data sets and not just data.
So you would more use it for grouping than for really making multiple atomic test cases.
Yes.
Okay. I so when I used the template first, I also realized that it's possible to have kind of multiple data combinations per test case, and from the execution, it doesn't really change anything. The test setup and test teardown makes it different, right? I think you will come to that later.
Yes.
But also the statistic is maybe a reason. So if you want to have every data combination as a statistic entry in the top of your log HTML, and you want to have, for example, 100 test cases for 100 data combinations, then you can create these 100 test cases and give every test case a specific name. That may also be something. For example, if you have many arguments, let's say you have specific personas that you are testing, and they have all a name and address and something like this, but every persona has some meaning or so. This data combination could be named with a test case, and then it could make also sense to have a single test case for every data combination, like in the XML, and then you can also write it in a single line, right? And that was then sometimes my decision to say, okay, here I want to give every combination a meaningful name, so I make many test cases instead of one test case with many combinations. And yeah, but actually I have never thought about the grouping functionality. It makes total sense. I just had, for me, it was like one test case with a lot of combinations versus many test cases with one combination. I never thought about the grouping. That's a nice idea.
Good points. Thank you.
Maybe there was also one comment from Gervin. It was here. Robot code also allowed to click on a submenu by clicking the lower right corner to the curly braces symbol, where you can access the option Show Tool menu in case all these shortcuts are nothing for you. So if you click in the robot file again, can you put the focus? Yeah, and then on the lower right side, you see there is very small. It's written Robot Framework in the blue bar of your robot code. In the blue bar, and there are two curly braces. Yeah, and there you can click, and there is also Show Tool menu at the very top. So you can also see which version of Robot Framework you are using right now, or it's a language version of the language server, and there is a blue menu. It's called Show Tool menu. Yeah, if you click that, you also see all
that's
the
really
robot
nice
code.
to know.
Yeah, and you see all the robot code commands there, I think. Yeah. So if you don't remember all that stuff, this is the submenu of robot code, your IDE for Robot Framework. Thank you, Gervin, for that information.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Thank you. That's really useful.
There was also a comment from Regina. From Richard. Could you maybe zoom in a little bit? So
sure.
Make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, I think.
Hope this is
maybe one step more, and then we can put we can make the. Yeah, I think that is great. Maybe you can reduce the tree or so.
Yes. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Okay, then I will go mute again.
Yeah, thank you for the comments. Yes. So yeah, now we saw that tests are grouped, and like before, iterations belong to their own test cases. Now, what if we want to use a different template for different test case? For example, we might want to check that file just exists, or that file is not empty, and we don't want to use the template which is set in the settings section. In this case, we can use test level setting template, and just check that file should not be empty. This is also a keyword from operating system library. And in this case, I need to add data to indicate the location, because location was in the keyword. If we now run this, okay, they are a little bit bigger than I have here. Let's just increase. This failed because okay, let's see what's happening. Should be empty. It should not be empty. Sorry, my mistake. So let's just check that files are not empty, and I don't need to pass these arguments either, because we are just checking that they exist. Here, if we check, we see that the same template is applied again, which is set in the settings section. The same for the second test case, and in the third case, file should not be empty. So this way we override the template which is set here. Now we might want to completely drop template. Maybe we don't want to use it at all. We can do that too. We can set template none, and we can check something here. Maybe files should exist. So I'll delete it. File should exist, and we don't need this anymore. And let's look something no longer template. So if we run this now, it should not have any template, but it should run just as a normal test case. Let's check. HTML test case is using template from the settings section. XML no longer template. So it no longer uses template, but it is just normal test case. And this one is using its own template. If we want, we can completely remove this from the settings section, and every test case can have its own template. For example, we can set here file size should not exceed. Now we don't have any template in the settings section. Nothing. And here, every test case uses its own one. And XML is not using anything. And we can even remove this because there is no template set. Yeah, so this is about manipulating template setting. Now, how about setups and teardowns? Let's see how they behave in case of templates. Let's look at the same example that we had. And let's try to add a test setup. So test setup, this is test setup, and test teardown, this is test teardown. Look. Let's see what happens. What happens here is that test setup and test tear down is applied to the test case entirely. Because as was mentioned in the beginning, it's important to remember that iterated are keywords. And even though they play a role of a test case. Therefore, whatever we set for the tests, whatever settings we put here for the test, it will be applied to the test cases as a whole and not to each iteration. So this is what happened here. We had setup initially, then 2 iterations, and in the end, tear down. But what we can do is, now that we know that keywords play a role of test cases, we can add setups and tear downs to the template keyword itself. For example, look, this is iteration setup. And we can add tear down. This is iteration. Look. Tear down. So now let's see what happens. So we had initially test setup here, test setup, and now each iteration has its setup and tear down. So the second one, third one. Yeah, so this is the key point to remember. Of course, we can have here suite setup and suite set tear down. And they will be applied normally because they don't interfere with the test cases. We'll have highest level setup and tear down, and then for each test case and inside it for each iteration. Just like templates, we can also override setups and tear downs. For example, we can have here override setup. And this way, we will override setup for HTML test case. And instead of this is test setup, we should see override setup message. Yes, like we expected. So this is overridden. So in summary, we can have setups on test level, iteration level, and suite level. And all this is true also about timeout setting. We don't need to go now into details, but it works in the same way. You can set and override. Yes. Now let's check our work time-wise. I think we are going so far good. Now let's see how failures happen and how we can control what happens if failure occurs. Let's reuse the same example. And now let's try to break one test. For example, let's check that size of the HTML file is less than 1 byte, which is of course not true. Yes, it failed. And like we saw previously, if one iteration fails, other iterations continue. However, test case itself fails. Now, what happens if we say, let's say, setup? Let's put a valid value here, and let's break setup. Let's say we log some variable which does not exist. We have not defined such a variable, so this setup should fail. It failed as expected. And we see that iterations are not run. So if a test case setup fails, then no iterations are executed. However, of course, we have tear down. Now let's see if we fail iterations. Let's change this back to valid keyword. And let's break this one. Let's also log something non-existent. Run. Yes, of course, it failed. And here, everything failed because it is applied. Those test cases where this template is applied failed. Next, let's try if test setup fails. Let's remove this and again log something. Here, if test setup fails,
the other 3 setups were overwritten.
Yes.
Yeah, the other 2, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So only the one to which this test setup applies failed, because the other 2 indeed were overridden. Like in case of XML, we don't have any template. We have removed, and here it's overridden. But the total result is still failure. And if suite setup fails, then we should expect that nothing is executed. And let's see. As we see, there are no test cases executed, so none of the iterations, because parent suite setup failed. Now, how can we control what we do with this? We can take advantage of two automatic variables in a robot framework: pretest status and keyword status. And let's see now how we can use them. Let's revert this to, okay, now this should be a working test case. That's all good. And let's try to print, or let's try to break again one test case, and let's try to print the result of the test case. For example, here, status. So this is existing automatic variable. I have not defined it anywhere, and it should print the status of the previous test case. So something failed, and let's see what we get here. Let's open. We are here. Yeah, it is pass. So this is pass because previous test case is passed. So again, this will get the status of the previously executed test case and not of the iteration. So that's why previous test status would not be helpful if we want to handle iteration failure. Instead, we can use keyword status, which is also automatic variable, but it's only available in the tear down because we know this keyword status after it is executed. Let's try to do something based on iteration failure. Well, let's remove this and define, instead of log here in the tear down, let's do something if iteration fails. And let's define some behavior, some keyword, do something. Okay, let's copy paste. If iteration fails. And let's add some documentation and just execute something. Now, how do we capture iteration failure? We can use if statement and let's use inline if, because there is no big condition. So let's do like this. So if keyword status fails, it will just print that this iteration failed. And let's use it here in the tear down. So if this fails, because we have broken, in that iteration, we should get this message. Let's try. So, failed iteration. And let's see if the condition was executed in the teardown. Yes, this condition was met because iteration failed, and our expected message was printed. So this is how we can handle behavior on iteration level. It can be in real life, can be taking screenshot or anything that is needed in the test case. There are other ways to control failure as well, and these are reserved texts in a robot framework. And such reserved texts are stop on failure, skip on failure, and exit on failure. And we can define them on test level. For example, let's say, yeah, we have broken this, and let's add some text. And yeah, we also get suggestions here. Skip on failure. And let's see what happens. Yes, as we see here, it's marked with yellow, which means the test was skipped. And the overall result is pass, even though the iteration failed. If we expand, we see that this iteration indeed failed. But because we used skip a reserved tag, it is marked as skipped. So the total tests do not fail. And this can be used, for example, if test is broken and temporarily not yet implemented.
Manana, we already got some questions in, and we are now 1 hour and a few minutes in
Yes.
the tutorial. Do you think it's maybe a good time to make a short kind of Q&A part and then continue with something? Would that be good
Yes.
for you, or?
Yes, I think maybe I can recap.
Yeah, sure.
I can take questions first, and then we can recap this section and maybe take a break.
Okay, awesome. So then let me just start from the top. Okay, the one from Gervin we had already. So we have one question from VB. Is there a limit to how many cases can be used in templates?
That's a very good question. There is no limit as such, but we'll get there too if there are. Sorry, the question was about how many templates, right?
How many cases can be used in a template, or yeah, I think the overall iteration, yeah, something like this.
Yeah, that's indeed a good question. And of course, if there is a long list of iterations, it's not a good idea to include them in one very long suite. Either it makes sense to break down the suite or to use data driver library, which we'll see later.
Yeah, I'm also not aware of a limit here, so not that I know of. Let's say so.
Yes.
Then we have the other. Yeah.
No, sorry.
Okay. Yes. Then we have another question. When does it make sense to use template? Why wouldn't someone use a for loop and iterate through elements?
Yes, that's also possible, and you can even use loops inside templates. The thing is, now we are looking at a simple example where we have just 2 arguments, but we may have several, like something else, let's say time stamp and some permissions and modified timestamp. And in this case, then if we were to implement with iterators, then we would have to have several nested loops, which is neither memory efficient nor readable. So that's why templates are preferable.
Yeah, my typical answer here would be in a for loop. If a keyword fails, that for loop exits and ends. So, for example, you have 20 users you want to test. Instead of making a for loop over these list of 20 users, while the third user has a failure, the whole test case will then fail and exit the test case. So you have no clue if the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and so on are also failing or if they pass. So these templates are very good. Of course, you could then wrap it in run keyword and continue on failure and so on, but it's way cleaner and easier to have here the template, specifically if you have a distinct test data that you want to test. Of course, if you want to do it more dynamically, for loops can be useful here. But I think in general, they have a different purpose, I would say.
Yes.
Okay, then we have another one. Is there a way to extend setup instead of override or pass arguments to setup?
In general, setup can be any keyword. For example, here we implemented this for the teardown, and in the same way we can define for the setup. It can be any keyword with or without arguments, but they are not in any way related to the template functionality itself. They are just keywords.
Yeah, however, the setups can use the arguments given to the keyword. So, for example, the line 38 that you have marked here, you could use the variable file or max size in the setup. So, in that case, the setup, of course, can be influenced depending on what argument you give to the keyword itself. So, that would work. That is one possibility to manipulate the setup. I'm not aware of a extension or so. So yeah, but I think that would work to make it somehow dynamic or reactive to what data you have given. Okay, and then we have the last question is, can setup be used to fetch dynamic data from external source such database or and template loop through fetch data instead of static one? I think this is
exactly
a question for
where
the second
data
half, right?
yes, yes, this is exactly where data driver library is best to handle dynamic data. Exactly.
Yes. We also have two people here. Tasco and Niels are there. I don't know. Do you guys want to ask a question in person? If so, then activate your camera. I can also pull
Hi,
Tasco in
everyone.
here.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I just wanted to ask these code samples, are they going to be uploaded somewhere so we can try it by ourselves, or just a live session and then?
Yes, definitely. I will upload this after the tutorial. I will make them clear and clean up, and I will definitely share.
We're going
I
to
will
get
share
the
in
link.
Slack channel. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I
And
would
then-
say maybe to the people here, Manana, I think you can share them in the RoboCon channel in our Slack as one
Yes.
possibility. So if you are now live here, strong recommendation, go to our Slack channel. You will find it over slack.robotframework.org or in our page on the community section. There you can click on the join link if you're not yet participant, or if you are already in the Slack channel, there is a channel, it's called #RoboCon. There Banana will share that, and for the people who watch that afterwards in YouTube, link is in the video description to the repository of Manana.
Okay. And then another question. So this was just the introduction to templates. So later you're going to show also the data driver. So with data driver and then a CSV file or Excel file, we can also automate this, or actually to feed the test with data, and then we have like a clear separation between the data and the test.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Great.
And yeah, Rene is
Looking
the
forward to that.
right person to.
But regarding
Yes,
the setup, because I like this test setup and tear down, but the problem is that it accepts only one keyword. So there's like a one trick you can say run keywords and then do 2-3 keywords. But is it possible this to be also a feature without run keyword, just to have setup with more keywords, or it's not planned in the robot framework agenda or
It is.
roadmap?
So maybe I can say something about that. So it is. There are discussions in the robot framework roadmap team that this that you, for example, could be able to use group or something like this as a setup. Like also the control structures, like if or for, and even the new group one. However, it's not that easy to implement because the parser has to distinguish all these things. As said, we are discussing about possible syntax and how to implement that. We discussed that in the open space on RoboCon in Helsinki. So maybe there's coming something. In the current case, create a keyword that calls multiple keywords and then use it that way.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, then I would say we switch to break, and we will have a 10-minute break. And after the break, Manana, we are directly starting with data driver, or what would be the topic for after the break?
Yes, if I could very quickly recap of the second part. So because of time limit, we could not cover all the possibilities of reserved text, but these are the three ones to try out. So next, after the break, we first go to shortly about control structures. We will cover a few of them to give idea how they work, and then we go to data driver library.
Okay, cool. Looking forward to that. So we will now, Manana?
Just to clarify, we're not going to dive deep into data driver library, but just to show how they work with templates, and hopefully then participants can explore more.
Yeah, but if you have questions about data driver, I think it fits pretty good in the topic. So and I know someone who could maybe answer the questions about data driver if you have any. Okay. Then let's make a 10-minute break and meet again after 10 minutes. So stay tuned. See you in 10 minutes. Thank you, Manana.
See you soon. Thank you.
So, hello. Welcome back from the break to our second part of the tutorial about templates. In the first part, Manana had has showed us already everything about template syntax, how template works, to group test cases, how to handle different data. And once Manana opens her microphone and her camera, I will pull her also up to stage again. We already have discussed some questions, and at the moment I'm waiting for Manana to come back. Manana, can you hear me? Your microphone and your camera is still off. So maybe in the meantime, until Manana is there, I can also introduce a little bit. Ah, there she comes. Wait a second. Manana, can you say something? Not yet hearing you. Okay, maybe in the meantime we had another question until Manana comes back. Could I use Suite Setup and extend it specially for every test case, or is it only possible to override the setup for every test case? So yeah, Suite Setup is definitely always executed once before all test cases, and then this is not possible to override specifically for every test case. And then was every test case, or is it impossible to override the setup for every test case? Yeah, so you cannot override the suite setup for test cases. There's only one suite setup for one robot file. If you want to have multiple suite setups, make multiple robot files. So now I have some maybe technical issues. Manana, can you say something? So Manana, we can still not hear you and not see you. Not sure what has happened here. Okay. Now she left, and maybe she will join again. We have another question. Is there a reason why suite teardown in the report is before any tests? Yeah, that's a good question. I had also these questions already in the Slack channel. So my suite teardown is not executed or so because people don't find it, or my suite teardown is executed before the test cases because in the log HTML, you basically have the suite, then you see suite setup, suite teardown, and then all the test cases. I also already proposed to maybe move the teardown below. On the other hand, then you see directly at the very beginning, okay, this is a setup, this is a teardown, it has been executed. But I agree, it can be a little bit confusing. So, Manana, we still don't have a picture, but can you say something?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Wait a second. I cannot see you. Can you say something again?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you still, but no camera is working. It's not necessarily needed.
Yes, apologies, some technical problems.
Now we see you again. Okay.
Okay, good. Yes, suddenly
There
my
you are.
computer got frozen and I could not do anything.
Okay, good. We have one other
sorry.
question before we then start in the next topic. Can we use template in the middle of a test case? Example, filling up multiple forms to be used in the next cases. So making some keyword calls, then a template, and then some other keyword calls.
That is also a good question. And the answer is we can't, because in templated test cases, whatever we pass, they are perceived as arguments. So if we write there some different keyword, like for example here, if we write like a log something, it will understand as if log and something are both arguments instead of file and max size. It will not be understood as a keyword. So that's why we cannot.
Yeah, you could only use test setup and teardown basically to have a prefix and a suffix, and then everything that is templated in between. So that would be the only possibility. There is also a question that I will postpone for later because it's not really about templates, but about init robots. We will talk about that later maybe. Okay, then Manana, I will also add your screen back to stage and go on. Have fun, you all, and let the questions flowing in. I will mark them and then ask that later. Thank you.
All right. Great. Now let's look at control structures. As mentioned, they are either iterators or statements which allow failed tests to continue or force them to stop. And let's have a quick look. For example, the loops were mentioned, and we might want to iterate over some data. In this case, we can try, let's define variables and, for example, files. And let's try to iterate over file names. So what will happen here is that, or let's run and see, it will be easier to understand. Okay. I need to reopen. So as we see here, iteration is over files, which is a list of files inside the templated test case. Of course, we can iterate both values if we need in a nested loop. But I will go a bit faster since we have limited time and just show what is possible, what kind of iterators. For example, we can have multiple iterations in loop. And in this case, we have iteration, and inside it, iteration of the keyword. And let's note that in the loop, this step is called iteration. We can have two loops together, like this, and we can have also nested loops, for example, like this. And there was a good question whether we can use other keywords. It's indeed good to note that even though we can use control structures, we cannot use any other keywords inside templated test cases. One thing to remember is that while is not supported, and it will give error. While is not supported with templates, so it is explicitly disallowed. And the so this was about iterators, and then there are more control structures such as break and continue. And let's see the difference between break and continue. Second, let's do this. Okay, I don't have here variables. Because we are iterating over size as well, so I'm adding and let's see. So this was failing because it was unsupported. So about break and continue, we have a condition that if size matches certain value, a test case should break. And break means that a test case is like iterations, next iterations are no longer executed. For example, we see here that this size was 1,000. It didn't go to the next value, so there should be 3 iterations normally. And about continue, the difference is that as soon as condition is met, the keyword execution, the keyword, next keyword is no longer executed, but iteration is. So continue just skips the rest of the keyword calls and just moves forward with the next iteration. So this is the main difference between break and continue. Then new group syntax, it's good to mention because it is new in 7.2. Groups can be used to sort test cases, keyword calls in logical groups. And instead of having separate test cases, for example, like we had for XML and HTML and XML, we can wrap them with the group syntax. And if we execute this, we okay, this does not exist. We can have let's run some math. Okay. Let's try now. I was passing the wrong. I was not passing the directory where the files are located. So we see here that step is called group, and this is new. And keywords inside it with iterations are executed inside this group. So we have 2 groups, and it looks cleaner in the log. Groups can also have loops inside, for example, like this. And again, okay, something happened. Let's try to execute this one. So now I only executed this test case. And here we have group and for loop inside. This is shortly about control structures and what they can do. And I think now we can go to data driver library. So when to use and why. As we see here, it would not be reasonable to have huge data inside robot files, especially if this data is dynamic. For example, there could be some Excel files generated by some other system or some other process in the pipeline, or they could be provided by third parties or some stakeholders. And that's where data driver comes. Data driver is not included in the standard library of robot framework, so we would need to install it with the pip install robot framework data driver. Yes, I have already installed, but yeah, if it's not, it will install, of course.
And one remark maybe at that point, if you want to have the Excel support, you also have to install the Excel extension. So that would be then a square bracket XLS square bracket close in the end. So just behind this pip install robot framework data driver without a space. So just, yeah, and then XLS, yeah, that should then install pandas and needed stuff for Excel support. So XLS and XLSX.
Good to know, thanks. Yeah. I will show a simple example. Let's say we have, for example, yeah, so this, I'm opening the same directory that I have here, CSV file. Okay. For example, we might have some table like this. And data driver library requires that this column is there. And for example, file and max size, which were our arguments in templated test cases, are now names of the columns. A good part in data driver library is also that you can set text and documentation in columns. Now let's have a look how this file looks like in a raw format and not opened in Excel. So you see in its raw form, it's a semicolon separated data. Now let's see how this would work if we run this case. We can name this case with embedded arguments. For example, size of files would not exceed max size, and data driver library would know that these are defined in the columns and will use from here. I also need to specify, of course, which library to use. Data driver, and I need to indicate where to read CSV file from, or which where to read data from. Let's try. Okay, succeeded. Here, also note the difference that iterations here are called tests, unlike built-in templates, because there were just keywords executed, iterated. as we see, a file and max size are taken from that Excel table. And we also have documentation, the log file size, and we also have tag, which is log. And similarly for the other iterations. One more thing to note, let's say we don't name test case, because here test case names were taken also from the Excel file. But what if we don't name? So let's just copy this. And let's save. I need to specify the limiter here. So I will save. CSV format, and I will keep semicolon limiter. So now we don't have any names here, and let's try to run again. Let's see. So what happened here is that those test cases which had names in the Excel file got their names from the column. But those who did not, they got names from the test case title, size of file, which was in this case report HTML should not exceed max size several bytes. This is very shortly about data driver library. Renee, would you like to add something?
Yeah, maybe go to the or answer the questions. So the one question that was already there is can setup be used to fetch dynamic data from external source such as database or template loops, fetch data instead of static ones? So as Manana already has shown, the data driver can iterate over a data source, which is by default, it can be CSV, Excel, XLSX, some tabular or some, let's say, separated file format, like comma separated CSV is also possible. You can configure that. XLSX, a JSON format. You can also have a tool integrated, which is called Pict, which is a pairwise combinatory tool where you can create basically a data model, and then the picked model is iterated by data driver. That's a nice thing. And you also can create your custom readers, and custom readers can be anything that you write in Python, and you basically just have to return the data structure that looks. Can you show maybe the CSV once again? So the data structure that you as a custom reader implementation return to the data driver as a reader is basically a list of these lines here. So a test case name, then the arguments, and then possibly tags and documentations if you want. And this can be returned. So that can, for example, fetch stuff from database. And there is a pull request at the database library from a colleague of mine, Halim, and he made an example with MySQL, so that a custom data reader uses MySQL to fetch the data. And you can also configure it that a specific keyword is called before data driver is loaded to actually configure the data driver. Then we have another question here. Can you use multiple CSV files with the data driver? So data driver for now has some limitations. It has a clear focus on one suite. So you can only configure one configuration of data driver per robot file. And that also means only one template per robot file. You can also not have, for example, like positive tests and negative tests with two different templates. So you have to define a local template keyword So with the templates, you could also use a template keyword that is coming from a resource file. However, I wouldn't recommend that. In data driver, you need a local template keyword so that the data driver library can get that keyword implementation from the robot suite directly, because then the keyword is part of the robot suite. You can only have one template keyword. You have one data driver configuration. So if you want to have multiple different kinds of data driver flavors in the same area, create multiple robot files in one folder. So that's this thing. Why I would recommend you, in general, when you use templates, to store your template keywords locally. So for example, here you see also, Manana, can you go back to some of your template examples? Anyone, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so you see here the template is a local keyword, like this file size should not exceed and so on. I would typically, of course, there are always exceptions, but I would typically recommend to store your keyword there, because if someone opens that file and wants to understand these test cases, you can just go down to the template and you see basically the test implementation there. If that template keyword would be stored somewhere else in some resource files, you always have to jump there, understand the sequence, then go back to your suite file and see how it's used. And in data driver, this is a necessity. Here, I would say it's more like a soft recommendation. I don't know, Manana, would you agree with that the sequence keyword should be stored locally?
Yes, a very good point. I forgot to mention that theoretically or technically it's possible for normal templates to use from resource files, but indeed it makes sense to include. But if that keyword is used in many places, or you have many files where you use it as a template, then it can be, of course. Used. Yeah. But otherwise, indeed, it's preferred to be inside the test suite.
Yeah, I would say more typical would be a keyword that is kind of specialized, because you are testing a special combination in this suite, so that has less cross references to other suites. Therefore, it should also be local. But yeah, of course, maybe even a resource file that is in the same folder. So for example, if you have multiple robot files that uses templates and that use the same template, maybe create a template.resource where you put this keyword. So it's not so far away. It's more where your test case implementation actually is, and you have more control about it. Okay. Let me just check if there is another.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I think we are running out of time, and can I still just show maybe style guide?
Yes,
because
please.
we cannot cover. So
Yeah.
I will just show it. Yes, we don't have time to cover it, but it's documented how to write clean test cases in Robot Framework. If we go to Robot Framework org docs website, there is a style guide, and you can see here how to write clean test cases and the conventions. And in the end, there is also about templates, so how to make it readable. Last point, we can also name each iteration so that practically one test case per line, and use still the template. But please feel free to browse and see what is recommended here, and also how to handle documentation syntax in a normal template, because data driver handles it very neatly, but not normal ones. Yes, so
Okay.
This was about it.
Manana, thank you very, very much for this great kickoff of RoboCon this year. So Manana was the first pioneer in the row of great tutorials and great talks. Thank you very, very much, Manana. It's always a pleasure to work with you. Manana also contributed heavily to the style guide. She and her team colleagues like Kelby and who was as well, I think Guido is also
Yes.
a part of that. Did I forget anyone? Or it's
we have had contributors. Anyone can contribute. We three have been working mostly, but we have had other ones and community members too. So everyone is welcome to check out the repo and contribute.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Manana. Kelby, you will also see in the afternoon, I think, in the end, the last talk, because he's based in the US, so he didn't want to wake up 3 o'clock in the morning like Joe has to do tomorrow. So please also check out our sponsors. You see here at the top, Index 9 is our platinum sponsor of RoboCon Online. And you see at the bottom, TeamScale, BQA, Imbus, where I'm working for. So spending my work time here. Thank you for that, Imbus. And Efficode, Vala, and Go4, they are sponsoring RoboCon. Without these sponsors, we actually couldn't do RoboCon. We wouldn't make any profit with RoboCon to spend it then again for robot framework development. So big thank you for these sponsors. Please share this video. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell if you get some if you want to get new updates of Robot Framework. We will publish all the talks occasionally then later in the year until next RoboCon. And we will meet again in 25 minutes for the next tutorial. This is then about, totally forgot it. Oh, parallel robots. So I think this is about Pabot and other things. So Christoph will give us a nice introduction into how to parallelize that stuff. So stay tuned, have fun at RoboCon. See you hopefully everyone tomorrow. And if you don't have a ticket yet, book a ticket quickly to have a direct access to all Helsinki talks and the RoboCon online talks from tomorrow on. See you soon. Bye-bye.